What is our potential? Do we have limits? What are these limits? Our potential is what we imagine ourselves to be, is what we project in the future, what we wish to become. Our imagination stands at the base of our potential and what we think is possible now or in the future. The limits that we see now may not be there in a few days or in a few months. The limits are our structure. It's how we get to our potential. The limits are our stairs, and they help us climb and reach our potential. If we struggle with our limits, deny them, then we deny the actual resources that will make us stronger and able to reach our potential. You can imagine these limits as stairs that you climb or as obstacles that you can jump over. But in order to jump over, you need to strengthen yourself. You need to learn how to jump over and reach a new space. Our imagination contains stories about ourselves, stories that we can call myths, myths about our history, about our expression in the future or in the past. These stories, are they just lies unfounded on reality? I am talking about these stories that remain in our collective consciousness and that have no actual author, or we do not remember the people, but rather we remember the story. And the story remains alive across ages. Stories that we have now will be also in a few years or centuries, even if they change the way they express them, the words, the characters. There is an essence to these stories that remains unchanged over the ages and reaches into the future, penetrates all potentials, endures. These stories are based on our consciousness and its potential, and they are downloaded again and again from our unconscious collective consciousness, so we can remember our potential, so we can remember who we are in order to have a destiny, a destination, to have something to reach for into the darkness of the unknown. These stories are perpetuated in a natural way, with ease. They flow and they have their own sustenance because they come from this collective consciousness. They do not actually need a lot of support and energy for us to perpetuate them. They are there for anyone who wishes to connect and reach them, who wishes to explore our human potential. Our limits help us bring strength, develop all of the abilities that we need to reach those potentials. But first, we need to actually understand that those potentials are possible. We need to open up to the possibility that we may become more, that we may include more of who we are into this expression, into the body, that we may express more of that potential through our bodies. The first step into our potential is this belief and openness to possibility, knowing that limits are useful to develop strength and will be those structures that continuously help us advance and include more of ourselves if we actually understand how to use them. Learning how to accept limits and how to surpass those limits is part of our journey of becoming, of meeting our potential, of bringing those stories into reality. If you have very strong mental limits that tell you this is not possible, that those stories are just stories, then they will remain there as stories, unmanifested into reality, pure potential. Just like a seed, if you do not plant it, water it, nourish it, it will not grow. It will not bring to anything. It will stay there as a seed and just do nothing. So these stories, these myths are our seeds, consciousness seeds, and are there for us to bring into reality, to water and nourish, to help expand and embody, express more of ourselves. You may say that these stories are also lies, that they cannot be put into reality, that will come nothing of them. But a lie requires a lot of energy, implication of a lot of people, and support of energy and repetition in order to be maintained. A lie needs to become a program in the subconscious that will be continuously entertained in order to be perpetuated. So you see, these stories They do not need this support. They do not need this type of energy and continuous repetition. They are spontaneous. They just appear if you connect with them, and they fill you up with an energy that supports you, that nourishes you. You can immediately feel that. You can immediately feel loved, supported in your journey by reaching to these stories. These stories are archetypal energies, archetypal consciousness, which contain an archive of expression, an infinite possibility of bringing divine consciousness into manifestation. Many times we may fear that those stories are just there, illusions, imagination, and we tend to suppress them, feeling sadness, feeling grief and loss while we are doing this. We tend to not give them the nourishment that they need to develop. Those stories are there to guide us, but what we manifest here is up to us, and it will take little steps, one, the second, the third, and so on, to build into that dream, into that story. And it will not resemble exactly as that story, because that story is what helps us move into that direction, and it will change and update as we move into manifesting what we see there. So, are there limits to our potential? Our potential is infinite, but in order to reach it, each step needs proper structure, and recognizing our current limits help us advance. Our potential doesn't have limits, but what we can do here and now to reach our potential has limits. By acknowledging these limits, you understand where you are in the process and what do you need to do next in order to progress. So limits are helpful hints that we can attach to for a little while in order to advance. If we become too attached to a limit, then we can no longer advance. We stay there, either in fear or through a need of security. If we stubbornly attach to a limit, we stay there, fixated into stagnation, and we fall into a state of struggle with the limits, and we may even even go back, searching for a state of safety and searching for integration of what we have discovered. This is natural to go back sometimes, to stay and not progress for a while, in order to integrate and not get overwhelmed by too much progress. These states are there for us to take a pause, reflect on what we have done, celebrate, enjoy, recharge, so we can go ahead to the new limits and use them to progress. If we reject these states and do not profit of the recharge and integration they offer, then we may get into a stubborn state of wishing to advance without having resources, harming ourselves. So right here, right now, take a moment with yourself and find out your limits and remember your potential. Write down the limits that you see around you and find out how are they helping you. Release the struggle and remember the potential you are going forward into. Remember who you are becoming and be joyful of this process. Feel it, enjoy it, welcome it.